Hello, Victor. Victor.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Sorry, you weren't there, and then I.
That's all right. I must excuse myself. I'm really incredibly sorry. 10 minutes late is not very smooth. I was kept in a call by one of our clients. They are Japanese, actually. They are speaking about some business things. Um,
Nice, no worries.
cool. I hope you can see me as well. Yes.
Yes, now I can see you. Amazing. What was the client? I lived 15 years in Japan, so it's one of my homes.
Wonderful. It is the JICA, JICA they're called, which is sort of the Japanese Institute for International Development.
Right. Wow,
And
that's good brand name. Congratulations on talking with them.
cheers, thank you. Yeah, they do a lot of work on circular economy and recycling in Africa, and we're supporting them there. So they are bringing some of the funding in. Yeah.
Very cool.
But thank you for still having me.
I don't know, it's good. I like it when people are late for meetings because sometimes I'm late and I figure it averages out, the karma goes around. So
Money comes, money goes.
if it was just me being late for meetings, then I would feel really bad. But since everybody does it sometimes, no problem. Yeah, so thanks so much for connecting. What shall we talk about today?
Not entirely sure. I think you. Oh, by the way, my connectivity has been fluctuating a bit. I hope I'm stable. But I think you reached out to me on LinkedIn with a message. I wasn't 100% sure what you do, but it looked very cool, very interesting. So I'm happy to chat. Uh, yeah, I think your image is frozen. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Okay. Let me change. I've never done a call. I'm gonna use space. Let me change and move to a different place. All right. This should be much better.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
see you, hear you. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I am networking widely across people doing building building the future, building a new world. So people across different movements. I organize once every 2 years a event in Portugal, which is now going global, bringing together different systems change maker organizations to cross weave across ecosystems, cross pollinate. And yeah, also as part of that, looking at how do we weave the story of weave together the different stories of all of the different things people are doing, from circular economy, regeneration, regenerative agriculture, etc. How do we weave all of these stories together so the world sees the bigger picture of all of the change that's coming? because there's so many people doing so many things, but because everybody's telling this story in a fragmented way, it looks like lots of small, individual efforts here and there, or small or not small, but it looks like lots of individual efforts whilst the mainstream of humanity is rushing rapidly onto a concrete wall. But in actual fact, if you add up all of the things that are happening, it's a huge movement and it's incredibly exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I do feel the same. I often wonder the same because, of course, there's so many beautiful people which do amazing things, but kind of in their own little ecosystem. And I think a lot of efficiency gets lost also. I think we could make 10 times more impact if somehow all of these dots were connected. Like even in our business, we even develop sort of software for circular economy, traceability of waste in the world. But there's 10 others who also do the same, which is great. But we're kind of competing with each other. Like, damn, what's the point of that? Because we're actually just trying to save the globe, right? It's
And
I know what you mean.
it's very curious. My background is in software, and I'm also looking more at the collaboration space software. I'm looking how to connect and interweave the people working on different new systems for collaboration. And you say that you're working on this software, and there's the other people that are working on similar things. Are you not in conversation with them? Do you not have?
With some we are, not with all, and there's always that toxic little feeling of competing, right? That you have in economics. That's what you're taught if you do business. I studied business actually fully, and you always think that competition is part of business, and I think somehow it's inside of us. So often you don't want to talk to others who are doing the same because you think, they're my competitors. If I share too much, they're going to take something away from me and from our business, and it's a bad thought actually. It's not healthy, but it's somehow part of business.
It's part of old school business.
Yeah.
I love this conversation, by the way, and Phantom is recording it for us, so maybe we can publish it afterwards if you're
Sure.
okay with it. Because I think there's two strands in what you said. First of all, this idea that we're competing with each other. But in actual fact, the only competition is the mainstream world, the default ways of working, right? The competition is not the other little traceable projects or even big ones. The competition is everybody who's not doing this. And this is a key thing that I'm trying to think, how do we create this mentality and that we understand that in this space, if anybody wins, we all win, because it creates more visibility, creates more traction. If your competitor gets funded, that's amazing, because you can show it to all the investors that you're talking to and say, look, this makes sense. Other people are funding this space. You should give me money, right? It's actually much more powerful than saying, no, there's nobody in this space. Nobody's received any money. This is something that inventors find hard to learn at the start, is that investors don't like unique and special things. They would like to have a really winning, strong investment that's part of a big trend.
Yeah.
Because they also understand that even if they give you money, you're going to need some money afterwards. And how are you going to? And when you're part of a trend, it's so much easier because that part of the story is already done for you. So this is what I mean about the shared storytelling. If we can get over this, we're competing with each other, and understand that we're just competing with the old systems, old mentalities, old ways of doing things, which are much, 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 much bigger than the new ways. That anybody wins, everybody wins. And then also, if we're friends and if the other people become really successful and then they run away, and your business is not going well, great, you can get a job there, right? You'll still be working towards the same cause on the same thing and working with friends. So that's on the kind of story and narrative. But then on the other side is the actual structuring. And for me, clear, more and more people are talking about systemic entrepreneurship, which is very cool for me, because when we framed the vision for the gathering 2 years ago, the event that I'm organizing, it was to create regenerative ecosystems of collaboration. So, and there it's more complicated because we need new structures, right? There is ergodic investing ideas or investing in portfolios. Yeah, we need to find new ways to work and function as an ecosystem. One of my big inspiring thoughts these days is how can we work and create businesses and collaborations like the forest? The forest creates weather, it creates wind, it creates rain. The Amazon changes continental weather patterns, global weather patterns. But there is no central coordinating tree.
Probably not. No.
Like there is no animal that goes around and tells everybody what to do. Everybody just does their own thing, and yet they still function as this much greater whole together. And I don't know how to achieve that, what that would mean, what do we need to change? But that's an interesting inquiry for me, right? How can we everybody do their own thing? Because of course everybody is busy and has so much to do. So it's not about creating more extra work for everybody, but changing the way we work. So in addition to doing what we do, it also contributes to this ecosystem that we're part of. But tell me more about your work, your company.
Yeah, thank you for that. Very inspiring. It was nice to listen to. Our work is in the circular economy for post-consumer products, basically. So packaged products, plastic packaged products, like beverages or food items, but also electronic products like your smartphone or your laptop, batteries, textiles. It can go into everything, really. What happens to the product once it becomes a post-consumer product? So once your phone is broken and you throw it away, who has the responsibility for it? And there is, or let's say it kind of requires a policy intervention, a regulation that says who is responsible for it, because even the brands which manufacture these products, whether it be Apple for phones or Coca-Cola for a plastic bottle, they tend to not want to take responsibility for the waste that they kind of produce, right? They say it's the consumer's responsibility, the government's responsibility, but there is this regulation and it is called extended producer responsibility, which simply mandates the producer of the product or the importer of a product into a country to pay a fee for the waste management, for the collection, the sorting, the recycling of the product so that it gets reintegrated into the circular economy in that sense. And that's a regulation. We've had that in Europe for quite some time. So in Germany was quite strong with it, some other European nations, and it's slowly being introduced globally. So more and more emerging markets, Africa, Asia, Latin America, are also finding this policy and realizing, yeah, like the people who produce the waste should, at least in some form, be made responsible for it. And what we do as a company actually is we provide this service. So when there's a producer putting a product onto a market, of course, Coca-Cola, by the way, if you publish it, maybe remove brand names, but Coca-Cola, of course, they're not a waste management firm, but they produce sugary beverages. So they need let's say an agency or a so-called producer responsibility organization to handle it for them. So they have to pay this fee into the scheme that we manage, and we actually organize the whole waste management around the product. So we ensure that the bottle that you throw away is collected, is recycled. We report the data, and that's the business model, really quite simply explained.
Very, very cool. That's super exciting. I didn't even know that this existed. But then, so you must plug into data streams from waste processors, or how does that work? Because I mean, the bottle from whichever company, it goes into a bin with bottles from 100,000 other companies, and then how does it get sorted out?
Yeah, indeed, that is it's a quite data heavy business model. There's financial data, of course, so how much fee is paid into the system, but also who receives it. Is it the collector? Is it the recycler? How much are they receiving for their services? But also there's data about waste volumes, how much of this product is transported, is recycled, and so there's these different data streams, and to make the system very transparent, to report to the government as about the performance of the system, but also to report to the customers, which are effectively the brands. They of course want to know, what am I paying for? We need to do a lot of data collection and have a good data management framework, which, let's say in Germany, where I'm from, is simple to that sense, because all business processes are in some way formal and contractual, right? So I have a contract with a recycler that already gives us a good data framework in itself. But if you go to markets in Africa, Asia, Latin America, a lot of the waste management is informal. Everything happens on a day-to-day basis. Everything is, you have waste collectors who support their families through this job of collecting PET bottles, which are valuable and can be recycled. But everything is informal. Everything happens in cash payments. There's no contracts. There's nothing. So there are structures, but they are not formalized. And there it becomes quite a challenge. Like, how do you manage to sort of support this existing waste management and help these people get integrated into a more formal system to get proper reimbursement, but still manage or collect data where none is being collected, actually. So
that must have, coming from Germany, probably one of the most organized and regulated places in the world, to a completely different reality like this. That's I'm surprised even that you were brave enough to go for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's again, as we spoke about at the beginning, it's somewhat a shared responsibility. It's a social business model to that sense. Nobody's going to get really rich in managing such a system, but it is a shared responsibility. A lot of the brands that import products to, right now I'm in India actually, are the same ones, Coca-Cola, PepsiCo, Nestle, who are large multinational corporations from the US or Europe, who bring all of their products into a different market, and then nobody takes responsibility for it. So it's, yeah, it is a challenge, but no fun if there's no challenge, right?
Amazing. And one question that came to me is, how do you deal with the data verification? Because it's significant amount of money. There is probably areas where it would be financially beneficial for certain people for the data to not be accurate.
Indeed. So fraud is an aspect of the business. Let's say an individual collects bottles and they sell it by weight. And then they have a big bag of bottles, and in the middle they put some sand into a bottle because then it weighs more. They can make more money. That's definitely a challenge. So being able to control that properly. But what our easiest data verification mechanism is actually to have a business transaction happening. So we don't actually buy the bottles, but we work with a recycler who buys the bottles. And of course, he has an incentive to not receive false amounts. So there would be a buyer and a seller. And if we speak to both of them, if we get data from the seller and we get data from the buyer and they both confirm the amount, that's sort of an automatic business transaction verification mechanism. It's not perfect, but we have two people with an incentive and they, what we only have to do is get a piece of information from each of them.
Interesting. And I wonder, because on the other hand, there's a lot of different people and it's much further downstream. But on the sales side, the data is very clear. Why not charge the manufacturers upfront at the sales side and then don't need to do all of the tracking? Or is it because the money needs to go to the actual people that handle the waste?
Yeah. Of course, we could create some money from a large chips, crisps producer for all of the products they put on the market, all of the weight of plastic. But of course, they want to know what's happening to the money. The government wants to know what's happening to the money. So we need good proof of where the money is allocated to and what happens to the waste, of course. So
okay. So the money comes from the manufacturers and you create the systems which allocate to the processors.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Amazing. And your system is already deployed in different places. So what stage are you at?
We are trialing. So we actually have, we operate such a scheme in India quite well. So it's reached break even after about a year and works very well. But there we still do things very manual. That means Excels, emails. We get the verification from the recyclers, but there's still a lot of manual verbal communication happening there. But now in pilot projects in Africa, we are trying to now implement our prototype, no code, low code, which we can test in a small range of participants, and then once that's validated throughout this year, we will go into hard coding of the system.
Cool. And in Germany, is your system running?
We don't operate ourselves in Germany, but there are a few larger players who do. They also have that system, and that also brings us back to an earlier topic that, of course, there are existing software systems that we don't want to compete with necessarily. Of course, informal markets are very different than what you find in Europe, but what we always look into is, okay, what existing systems are there? Can we have a partnership around those rather than starting from scratch and developing something entirely new, which also costs us a lot of resources. Yeah.
Very cool. So you're based in Germany, but you're looking at these more informal markets for your business.
Yeah, we are based in Berlin. We have 0 activities in Germany or in Europe at all. Just
interesting. Is there some part of the story that you can share? That how did you end up a Berlin-based company looking at these? I mean, I guess there is chunks of Berlin which are informal and ad hoc more than other parts of Germany. It definitely has that spirit, but
yeah. I mean, yeah, Berlin is a very international city, of course. Actually, the team has about 3 Germans, and the rest of the greater group of companies is actually international from all over the world. How it came, I think, is that the 2 founders of the group of company, they had already worked internationally, a lot in the MENA region, as well as in Africa. And Germany is a very strong country in waste management. I think probably the most innovative and technologically advanced when it comes to waste management technology, tracking, traceability, recycling technology. And we have a very high recycling rate, of course. So I would consider not just the machinery needed for recycling, but also business models like this is sort of an export product that Germany can boast. And for us, it wouldn't really make sense to try and improve the waste management system in Germany because it works pretty well, but rather,
Yeah, I love this idea because usually when we think of export products, we think of, well, either physical things or maybe services things, but this is conceptual models plus services plus software around it. Uh, and then going into informal markets. Very cool. So yeah, what is where is your company business at and what do you need?
As I mentioned, at this prototyping stage, so we do operate the servers already manually, but now we're at the digitalization stage and prototyping those systems. What we do not currently have in the company is, for example, the CTO, someone who actually can take full product ownership of that part of it. So we are environmental engineers. I am a business guy, but we can do as much as we can, of course, in developing the digital domain, but to properly do it, of course, we do need to build capacity there. And apart from that, we are currently sort of in the middle of a financing round to, we could bootstrap it. We do have regular income through consultancy services that we provide, but to actually grow as fast as possible, really, and to try and introduce this to as many countries as possible. We have decided to start a financing round. Yeah, those are two open topics always.
And where are you? What stage are you at with your financing round?
You mean like in the startup stages?
No, I mean like you already have some people that want to give you money, or you just need to. You've thought about it, and you need to write a deck. You know, like
Yeah.
it's a process.
Yeah. Let's say the documentation is there, financial plan is there, all of that is through. Different pitch decks are ready. Due diligence server is ready, but we are working into these business units, and we are even considering to finance the business units individually. So one is really this core extended producer responsibility, for which we have good investor interest actually, and I think that is closed in that sense. But rather the digitalization part, we're considering to take this as an own investment product, and there we don't have investors who are really in the
Wait, but isn't it
domain. Yeah,
isn't
sorry.
the software an integral part of the producer responsibility? I mean, I don't understand you. What is the difference?
Yeah, it is, I think, to operate efficiently. Yes, it is. So it's not a SaaS product that you would sell necessarily. It's for your own operations to make those efficient and to provide a good service. But yeah, what we do in India right now, we can do it manually. It just takes 10 times as much time probably than if we would have it automated in a software. But if we consider this software as an own business unit, it can, of course, expand into entirely new things because we can create this core product to improve our own services. But I think there's a lot of potential in terms of customer portals, in terms of integrating new stakeholders into the system, in terms of API integrations to government portals, to ERP systems that probably large enterprises use, like Microsoft, like SAP, to expand upon that really. And we have these minimum requirements for the software, but I think there's much more possible. And also to finding investment interest in that, and rather considering it more of a SaaS product than just a system that we need for our operations. If that makes sense.
And that side, you're saying that you're not finding investor interest, or you just haven't.
We, on one hand, we haven't fully focused on it yet, so we haven't really started reaching out to those right investors, scheduling meetings, pitching it. The interest that we know about came more from general conversations with people. So I wouldn't be able yet to tell you what the actual investor interest is because we haven't investigated yet. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is the thing with ideas. It requires headspace of the leaders, and it requires, it requires somebody to wrap their head around it. As we were talking, I was thinking actually maybe even more than CTO, what you need is a head of product.
Okay.
Somebody that's really is my background is in tech, right? I've been 35 years in technology, from software development, product management to the whole thing. And the actual, in many ways, for these kinds of things, the technological part of it is not so complicated. You need competent execution of solid software, right? But it's not, you're not building the next cloud infrastructure, blah, 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 right? It's not a technologically, and even, there's so much that's become so much easier. However, as software has become easier, coming up with software which is actually useful for people, relevant to their daily lives, that people use, that that can scale at a business sense, that can be used for different use cases, that that the market wants, right? It's easy to create whatever software, but actually creating something that the world needs and wants and will use is where the hard part has really shifted to, right? It's understanding the customers, understanding their needs, understanding, like you said, different areas. And that's more of the product management, even product marketing side.
Yeah, I mean, what an option, of course, always could be is to have, as you mentioned, a product owner, a product manager in the company who isn't even that tech key, but understands the requirements perfectly or can learn how to understand those, and then have an agency to actually develop it externally.
Exactly. And there is lots of, I'm happy to have, if you like, at any point, because I've worked with many different agencies and organized this stuff. I'm happy to have another conversation with you around concrete things. And yeah, I think in your case, having head of, if you want to give them a nice title, head of product or chief product officer, in a small company, that sounds funny, but head of product, product manager, that really grasps the market, grasps what can be sold, grasps the business, and then can effectively translate that into the code specifications and then all of this. So that's a position that you cannot outsource, I believe. They really need to be things.
Yeah, they have to be ours.
If they are able to competently translate the business need, the product need into software requirements, from that point, there's lots of amazing companies in Berlin, in Eastern Europe. I really like working with companies in Eastern Europe because culturally, I find them easier to work with. For me, the key thing is, and it's every culture. It's not, there's no good or bad cultures. It's just the ones that you're comfortable and familiar with. And for me, when working with software developer, I really need to work with software development technical teams. When I ask them to do something stupid will just tell me no. That's a bad
That's
idea.
important. Really.
Right. And in certain cultures, the customer is always right, and the technical people will not tell you no. They'll just, spend 10 times. And the good technical people will tell you no, that's a bad idea. But look, I can give you 80% of that for 10% of the cost. Would that be useful?
Yeah, in Germany, unfortunately, it's customer king, which is
Oh,
not
really?
always. Yeah, often you'll find that people will do anything
Interesting.
is asked for and paid for, but
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, there is also, I think, a degree of how you build a relationship. Like, I'm originally from Poland, and I work with Russian, Ukrainian, Belarusian, Polish development teams. And if you teach the developers to say no, I mean, of course, sometimes you need to say, well, actually, in this case, this is really important, and I know it's a pain in the ass. Please do it. But
yeah,
you really want a team that will push back and say, like, are you really sure this will, like, because from outside sometimes it's not obvious, right? You're like, oh, this button here and this button there, but you don't see that it's two unrelated, completely different parts of the system, and something
yeah,
is going to have to be.
yeah,
So having that mature, strong back and forth conversation, and really, like I say, the best tech teams will be like, are you sure? It's like, it's a small thing, it'll take us 3 weeks, but I can give you this small subset of it, and most of the time it's enough, right? Like, if you give me sometimes even 30% of the functionality for 1% of the work, it's like, yes, win, good enough, move on, we'll do the rest another time.
yeah.
Cool.
Cool. Yeah, I would
Nice.
definitely appreciate to have another chat also after digesting things, because also, unfortunately, in 2 minutes I need to go
Yes,
with
thank
another
you.
colleague.
Yeah,
But
wonderful. It's been a great call, wonderful opening, and yeah, let's have another call.
yeah, it was a pleasure. Oh, and also appreciate if you send over some info about the gathering in case it's happening this or next year. Sounds very cool, actually.
Will do. Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye bye.
Then have a wonderful day. Bye bye.